A candidate sits across from a recruiter, voice steady, hands folded, trying to seem honest. Honestly, my last boss was toxic. Translation: future conflict risk. Different room, different industry, same instinct. I really need this job. Translation: no leverage, cornered. Another: I want to eventually start my own business. Translation: flight risk, 2 years, tops. I struggle with deadlines. Translation: operational liability. I'm burned out. Translation: already broken before walking in. I just need something stable. Translation: emotionally exhausted, low upward drive, will settle, then disengage. 6 honest answers, 6 rejections. You've sat in that chair, maybe twice this year. You walked out thinking you finally got to be real, finally got to drop the corporate mask and speak like a human being. 3 days later, the rejection email lands and you have no idea what happened. Here's what happened. Nobody in that room was looking for honesty. They were looking for risk. Every word you said passed through 3 filters they will never tell you about: predictability, maintenance cost, profitability. Interviewers are not sitting there asking, is this person authentic? They're asking, will this person become expensive? Job interviews are not truth competitions. They are controlled perception tests. A job interview is not therapy. It's marketing. And the worst part, most of the lies that buried those 6 candidates came from the same place, every single one of them. The phrase that kills more interviews than anything else is the one nobody thinks is dangerous. I really need this job. Or its slightly more polished cousin, I'll take anything at this point. Or the silent tell, when the recruiter asks about salary and you immediately say, whatever you offer is fine. In your head, humility, commitment, sincerity. In the recruiter's head, cornered. You can actually watch interviews die in this moment. The recruiter is leaning forward, engaged, asking sharp questions. You drop one too eager, I really want this opportunity. Your voice cracks half a tone higher than the rest of the conversation, and something goes cool in their face. They keep smiling, the questions keep coming, but the energy is gone. They've already filed you under desperate hire, and they'll spend the next 40 minutes politely confirming what they already decided. Desperation is one of the strongest negative signals in hiring psychology. Companies don't want candidates who need them. They want candidates who choose them. Need creates instability. A desperate hire accepts the role, then keeps interviewing for a better one. A desperate hire negotiates from weakness. A desperate hire may stay, but staying is not the same as buying in. Sometimes it is just resentment with a login badge. This is where you have to understand what's actually happening underneath every question. The literal question is just the surface. Underneath it is the emotional concern. Are you stable? Will you make my life harder? And underneath that is the financial concern. Will hiring you cost more than not hiring you? Desperation answers all 3 of those wrong at the same time. Neediness lowers value in dating, in negotiations, and in interviews. The mechanics are identical. Replace I really need this job with I've been looking at a few opportunities and this one stood out because of how the role is structured. You're not begging now, you're evaluating. You're a peer making a choice, not a survivor accepting whatever lands. The interview is not the place to confess, it's the place to position. Why did you leave your last job? You exhale, finally, an honest question. You start with one true sentence, then another, then a story, then a name. Suddenly, you're 7 minutes into a Netflix documentary about your former manager and the time she rescheduled your performance review 3 times in a row, and the time she took credit for the project, and the time she stopped talking. The recruiter is not evaluating your old manager. They cannot verify a single thing you just said. They are evaluating you, specifically the part of you that talks about people who once had power over you. Candidate says, my boss was toxic. Recruiter hears, in 2 years, this person will be in a different interview describing us the exact same way. Even when the boss really was a nightmare, even when every complaint is verifiably true, truth doesn't matter here. The pattern does. The pattern is this person metabolizes workplace conflict into narrative blame, and they do it in front of strangers. Replace the complaint with the cleanest, most boring framing you can manage. The role evolved in a direction that didn't match where I wanted to grow. Cold, forgettable, forward-facing, exactly what you want. Most candidates think they're being self-respecting when they explain why their old job destroyed them. They are handing the recruiter a free risk report on themselves. My long-term goal is to start my own business in a couple of years. You think you're signaling ambition. The recruiter is already mentally moving on. The math runs in 2 seconds inside their head. Onboarding 3 months, real productivity 6, recoup the cost of hiring 18. If you're walking out the door at 24, the company is losing money on the entire arrangement. Companies are not investing in your dreams, they are investing in your retention. Candidate says, I want to start my own thing in a couple of years. Recruiter hears, trained him, watched him leave, repeat the cycle next year. This one is cruel because most recruiters personally respect entrepreneurial ambition. They just cannot hire on it. The interview is not a place where personal respect and professional decisions converge. You thought you were showing vision. What you actually did was tell them they are the training montage before your real life begins. Keep your timeline ambiguous. Keep your interests specific to this role. I'm focused on developing depth in this domain. The way this role combines responsibility with ownership is exactly the kind of expertise I want to build. You haven't lied. You've simply not volunteered the part of your story that disqualifies you. That isn't dishonesty, that's professional editing. The same editing every successful person at that company is doing right now in every meeting, in every email, with every client. At my last job, I really pushed back on leadership. You think you're signaling backbone. The recruiter sees a management problem with extra steps. Candidate says, I refuse to follow processes that didn't make sense. Recruiter hears, future HR ticket, will not absorb feedback, will turn small disagreements into political battles I have to clean up. Here's the thing nobody tells you about the people interviewing you. They are not heroic outsiders rooting for the rebellious truth teller. They are insiders who survived the hierarchy by learning how to manage it. When you describe defying your old manager, they aren't imagining a brave maverick. They're imagining themselves on the receiving end of that exact behavior in 6 months. Most people who say, I just speak my mind, are not warning you that they're honest. They are warning you that they haven't learned timing, packaging, or consequence. The fix is not pretending to be a doormat. The fix is reframing disagreement as structured and resolved. There was a process I felt was inefficient. I documented an alternative, presented it to my manager, and we adopted parts of it. Same backbone, same intelligence, but now the story signals collaboration instead of combat. Recruiters are not looking for sheep. They are looking for adults who can disagree without destabilizing the system around them. There is a version of you that wins this interview. It's the version that learned how to deliver hard truths in soft packaging. That skill is more valuable than the truths themselves. What's your biggest weakness? Most predictable question in the entire interview. Highest rate of self-inflicted damage. A project manager says, I struggle with deadlines. A salesperson says, I'm not great with confrontation. A team lead says, I'm not good at delegating. Candidate says, I struggle with deadlines. Recruiter hears, cannot do the job. Each one thinks they're being refreshingly honest. Each one just told the recruiter in plain English that they cannot perform the central function of the job they are interviewing for. This question is not a humility test. It's a self-awareness test that doubles as a self-sabotage detector. They want to see if you can name a real weakness without disqualifying yourself. The worst weakness answer is not the one that sounds bad. It's the one that proves you don't understand what the job actually requires. Choose a weakness that is adjacent to the role, never central to it. Pair it with the system you built to manage it. A project manager says, I tend to overdocument. I've learned to scale documentation to the size of the project so I don't slow execution down. Same self-awareness, zero disqualification. The candidate who answers this question well is not lying. They are demonstrating something more important than honesty. They understand the difference between a confession and a credential. Job interviews are not truth competitions. They are controlled perception tests. This one is hard to talk about because it feels cold to even bring it up. A candidate trying to humanize themselves leans into something real. I've been going through a really tough time. My partner and I just separated. I'm dealing with some health stuff. In their head, honesty, vulnerability, connection. In the recruiter's head, the unfair and unspoken assumption forms instantly. Absence risk, onboarding risk, emotional volatility risk, a variable they can't price in. Candidate says, I'm dealing with some health stuff. Recruiter hears, future complication they didn't sign up for. The discomfort here is real. Human beings have human lives, real grief, real transitions. And the modern professional script demands you behave as though none of it exists for the duration of the conversation. That's because the interview is not a relationship. It's a transaction wearing the costume of a conversation. The recruiter does not have the authority to give you compassion at scale. They have the authority to give you a paycheck, and only if they can convince 3 other people in the company that the paycheck will be a good investment. Congratulations. You accidentally turned your interview into a trauma documentary. The recruiter asked for your strengths, not your autobiography. The reframe acknowledges transition without revealing instability. I'm in a chapter of life where I'm ready for a focused, long-term role. Save the human truth for human relationships. The interview is not one of them, and pretending otherwise has cost more good people their dream jobs than any other single mistake on this list. So, what do you know about us? You freeze. Then you say the most damaging thing in the entire interview catalog. Honestly, not too much. I just saw the listing and applied. You think it shows openness, a willingness to learn. Candidate says, I just saw the listing and applied. Recruiter hears, they didn't pick us, they picked the next email in their inbox. Research is not about admiration. It's about proving you're not random. The company does not need you to love them. They need to believe you selected them on purpose. Because people who arrive randomly usually leave randomly, and the recruiter knows it, the hiring manager knows it, every system in that company has watched it happen too many times to ignore. 15 minutes of research is the cheapest leverage available to any candidate alive. Skipping it doesn't read as honest. It reads as transactional. It tells the interviewer that any of the other 30 companies you applied to would have produced the exact same conversation, the exact same answers, the exact same energy. You didn't choose them. You needed somebody, and they happened to email first. Walk in with 2 specific observations framed as connection points to the role. I read about your expansion. The way you're structuring that team aligns with what this role would touch. You don't have to flatter. You just have to prove you arrived on purpose. What kind of compensation are you looking for? You trying to seem flexible. Honestly, whatever you offer is fine. You just spoke one of the most expensive sentences of your career. Candidate says, whatever you offer is fine. Recruiter hears, no leverage, will accept below market, will resent it within a year, will leave once they realize what they're worth. Here's a trap most people miss. Even when companies pay candidates less because of this answer, they hire those candidates with diminished respect. The internal narrative becomes, we got them cheap because they didn't know better. And underpaid hires are also underpromoted hires. The anchor follows you for years, sometimes for an entire career. Have a number ready, researched, defended. Based on the scope of this role and market rates for similar positions, I'd be looking in this range. Happy to discuss specifics once we've confirmed fit. You haven't named a desperate number. You haven't seemed greedy. You've signaled that you understand the market. which is the exact signal a serious recruiter respects, even when they push back on the figure. You thought you were being flexible. They heard clearance sale. This is the one that hurts to talk about because it's the most honest one on the list, and it's also the one that destroys candidates the fastest. Honestly, I'm just tired of working. I'm exhausted. I hate corporate environments. You think you're being relatable, real, human. The recruiter hears something far worse than dislike. They hear finished. They hear someone who has emotionally exited the workforce while still physically applying to be in it. Here's the contradiction sitting at the center of modern employment. Companies want passionate, engaged, energized employees at a moment when millions of working people are emotionally exhausted in ways they cannot admit out loud. The system demands enthusiasm from people running on fumes, and the unspoken rule of every interview is that you must hide the fumes. It's brutal. It's also true. You can feel the exact second burnout leaks into an interview. The candidate starts strong. Then halfway through, the energy drops, the smile gets thinner, the answers get shorter. The recruiter watches it happen and silently makes the note that ends the conversation before the conversation ends. Burnout is real. The conditions causing it are real. None of that matters here. Companies cannot hire candidates who have already given up, not because companies are cruel, though some are, but because exhaustion is contagious within teams. One openly burned out hire reshapes morale for everyone they touch. Managers know this. They've watched it happen. They will not hire it into their team again. The reframe acknowledges that you're looking for a better fit without communicating that you have nothing left to give. I'm looking for a role where the work has clearer impact and the environment supports doing it well long term. Same human truth underneath, but now you sound like someone choosing a better environment, not someone collapsing into the next available chair. The painful realization here is that the system requires you to hide the wound the system caused. That's the cost of admission. You don't have to like it. You just have to know it.